Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Sleepless Cinematic Podcast, where we explore our shared love for watching and discussing movies, recorded usually in the late after work hours, often in lieu of a good night's rest, but not today. We're switching things up just a little bit and doing it on an afternoon. I'm Emilio.
I'm Julian.
And I'm Madeline. The three of us are colleagues at a Midtown Manhattan music school. Yes, music is what brings us together, but movies are what keep us together talking at the end of the night. So we've created some order to this ongoing trend by recording these conversations, considering an overarching theme while we cycle through 5 unique guidelines for engagement.
You can email us at sleeplesscinematicpod@gmail.com. Seriously, we would love to hear from you. And you can also follow us on YouTube, Instagram, and TikTok for updates, highlights, clips, and other visual supplements to the audio we record at the handle Sleepless Cinematic Pod.
In addition to these main episodes, we record and release bonus one-off episodes as we see fit. And while we do this, you, the listener, can count on the three of us doing what we've grown to love, foregoing sleep for a discussion about movies every other week.
And this week, we continue our current cycle highlighting offbeat musicals with a category that we call Mise-Unseen, where the three of us main co-hosts all watch a movie that we have not seen before and discuss our impressions and main takeaways from that first viewing.
Yes, and that movie that most of us are coming to for the first time for this conversation is a film from 2001 called The Happiness of The Katakuris. It's directed by Takashi Miike, the famed Japanese director known for a very prolific output. It's an ensemble. I was about to call it a drama, but I don't think that that's really very accurate.
Let's get back to that, though.
It is, as you would expect from what we're talking about, an offbeat musical, but it's also got horror elements. It's kind of funny at many points. This is a very distinct movie, to say the least, and we'll get into exactly what makes it so distinct as this conversation goes along.
And to discuss this very distinct pick of a movie, we have with us a guest that has made it at least part of her life's work to find unique movies for others to see. At the handle Movie Rex by Lex on Instagram, she'll give you her thoughts on new releases. She'll share carefully curated lists of films based on themes. And most notably, she'll dig into her followers' top 4 on Letterboxd and thoughtfully suggest other films they might enjoy. I have been consistently impressed for years now with the variety and scope of the movies that she shares. There's a real range in her picks across decades, genres, countries of origin. If you are a cinephile, she is a fantastic, I'd even go so far as to say essential follow on social media. Not only because I personally see a lot of overlap in our taste in movies, things like Network, Paper Moon, 12 Angry Men, but because I truly do get great secondhand recommendations of things to see. Not a Pretty Picture was one that came up recently. I got to check that one out. And I'm also reminded of movies that I really enjoy that I'd love to go back to. Movies like Saving Face and The Informant. When we saw that she had logged this movie on her Letterboxd account and we knew that we were going to talk about it, she became our first call. So we are so happy that she could join us. Lexi Amoriello, welcome to the Sleepless Cinematic Podcast.
Welcome.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm honored that you invited me to talk about this movie specifically.
Well, we're thrilled that you joined because, as Julian said, the three of us had not seen it, and I had it heavily recommended to me, and I'm the one that proposed it to the group. But I think the three of us were like, we don't totally know what we're in for, and it would be really nice to have a guest who has actually seen this before and seems to have enjoyed it.
This was a Dougie suggestion, wasn't it?
Yes, my partner, who we call Dougie on this podcast, he's a big fan of this movie, but had not watched it in a long time, so I had never watched it with him.
And yeah, I think we keep saying this is a distinct movie, but there are a few titles that you may just possibly confuse The Happiness of the Katakuris with, and one of those is that it is not to be confused with Happiness.
I knew you were going to do this.
I didn't do mine because I knew that was going to come up.
And I knew that you guys knew I was going to say this. But yes, that's the Todd Solondz film from 1998. This one, yeah, that drama's more appropriate for that movie, even though it's also a weird, idiosyncratic film. It's a big ensemble. It's a sprawling movie, and if you can stomach some of the things that happen in it, I think it's a very worthwhile journey. But yes, and also released pretty close in time and also about many members of a single family.
Sure.
That's where there is
Yeah.
like real room to confuse it with the Happiness of the Katakuris. But no, it's the Jordan family in Happiness, not the Katakuris.
And I wouldn't say they're all that happy.
Yeah.
I mean, we can argue that the family in the film that we're discussing today are also struggling with
Yeah.
the concept of happiness.
Yeah.
So
It's a little bit like,
Yeah.
you know, when you watch Fame and then the characters aren't famous, but it's kind of the thing that they're all thinking about.
They're striving
aspiring,
for,
Yeah.
for sure. And while both films depict families in some state of turmoil, often against the backdrop of rolling hills and countryside, this is not to be confused with the film The Madness of King George, which is the 1994 British film starring Nigel Hawthorne, Helen Mirren, Ian Holm. It's got an early turn from Rupert Everett. I have never seen this film, but it is responsible for one of my earliest memories that I have of like an image of a film searing itself into my brain. There was a picture, a still that was used to promote this movie of the main character, King George, just running with his outstretched hands in like an old tiny white adult onesie pair of pajamas and being chased by a bunch of other people. I don't know why, but it is burned into my brain the way that I think some of the visuals from the movie that we are going to discuss also has the ability to do. Very different films, The Madness of King George, not to be confused with The Happiness of the Katakuris.
Yes, and while we're continuing to talk about Japanese families, we should say that The Happiness of the Katakuris is not to be confused with My Neighbors, the Yamadas, which is a Studio Ghibli film from 1999 that traces through like different episodes of the lives of like a Japanese middle-class family known as the Yamadas. So comes out, fairly close in time to this film, also about a Japanese family who I believe are in a more rural area, like in this film. So do not confuse these two films.
Interesting.
Very
I
cool.
actually didn't know about that movie. And if we're talking about like, similarity in time, I mean, this is a bigger stretch, but Royal Tenenbaums is the same year. Sprawling family drama. To put it in Lebowski terms, a lot of ins, a lot of outs, a lot of what have yous.
A lot of strands
those
to keep in one's head.
Yeah, confusing
Yeah.
those is a bigger stretch, but still.
So, Julian, what is The Happiness of the Katakuris about?
Well, I don't know that any single description can truly answer that, but I'll try my best. Before any events involving our titular characters, we must note this strange happening of a young woman at a country eatery finding a strange, dark pixie-like creature inside a bowl of soup that bites out her tongue and proceeds to fly away with it before being captured and eaten by a crow, which is then in turn consumed by a sentient stuffed animal of some kind. Somewhere nearby, an unhatched egg is captured by a snake, which itself is grasped by a vulture, and then dropped at a nearby nest, and subsequently the egg that it has picked up is then dropped, then hatching to reveal another one of these dark pixie creatures, who is then eaten by another crow, who then leaves a dropping on the head of one Jinpei Katakuri, who subsequently takes his revenge. And now we've made it to our titular characters. What's going on with this Katakuri family? Well, we're brought into their happenings now. I guess I'm going to keep using that word. The happenings of the Katakuris, comprising 6 members at a house in rural Japan. The aforementioned Jinpei is the great-grandfather, while the patriarch and matriarch of this family are named Masao and Terue, respectively. The former, Masao, a laid-off shoe salesman who has recently purchased this family's home with the hope of profiting from it as a guest house, being that a major road is set to open nearby. Accompanying Masao and Terue are their daughter, Shizue, already divorced at a young age and the mother of the youngest Katakuri, Yuri, and then their son, Masayuki, who has lost his job on account of a so-called short fuse and a seeming run-in with the law. When it looks like business will be slow, to say the least, at what has been named the White Lover's Guest House, a guest suddenly arrives in the middle of the night, but almost just as immediately experiences a tragic misfortune, which leads the titular Katakuris into a series of desperate decision-making and an odd cascade of similarly bizarre tragedies within the walls of their hybrid home and business. That's the scene to set.
That is the setup. I like that.
Thanks, yeah.
So I came in like brick cold on this movie. Pretty much next to no prior knowledge of what I was getting myself into. But Lexi, you do have some prior experience with this film. I'd be curious maybe to ask you first, like, what did you know about this movie maybe before you saw it for the first time? And then maybe just, some of your initial feelings after that first watch.
I knew it was from the director of Audition and Ichi the Killer. And I had read the Letterboxd description, so I knew like the basic premise. I knew what happened with the first two guests, and I thought that seemed very unique, and I was intrigued. I was not aware of the genre, though, so I did not know that it was a hard, dark comedy musical. I definitely did not know the musical part. That was a surprise. The first time they started singing, I was like, oh, is this a musical or is it just a one-off thing?
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't know there was going to be claymation in it either.
Yeah, that's like right out the gate. You get some of that.
Totally.
Cool. And what did you feel like after that first watch? Like, what was the exit survey for you on that?
I loved how bizarre it is and just this mashup of genres. I've never seen a movie with a karaoke style sing-along scene thrown in. Like, it's got a little bit of everything. And I think it's probably my favorite Takashi Miike film now.
Yeah.
I don't remember which ones I had seen at that point. I think since then I've seen Visitor Q, which I did not enjoy nearly as much as this one.
That's, I think, the thing about Miike. I've only seen Ichi the Killer, but I didn't particularly care for it. But it feels like more of like a it's just not my taste kind of thing, more so than like it's not well done. Like, I think it's very effective for what he's setting out to do, but I find it really hard to stomach. And so I went into this being like, I know this is going to be different in like every conceivable way. So Dougie has been telling me about this movie for a long time. I think after I saw Ichi the Killer and I was like, I don't like this movie. He's like, you need to watch a few others. I still haven't seen Audition. I actually plan on seeing it tonight, but I also wanted to watch The Quiet Family, which I did watch, which this film is like loosely based on. It's a South Korean film from a few years prior. I think I knew it was going to be very campy, and like somebody, I think on Letterboxd, one of the top reviews describes this as like Sound of Music meets House. And I was like, well, that sounds like it's tailor-made for me. So I really enjoyed this. I, like Lexi said, it's extremely absurd. Like it's going in so many different directions with the claymation. I love the claymation, not just that it like starts with it, but it sprinkles it throughout. I always found it really refreshing. I think that plus the musical aspect actually makes the pacing of this film really interesting and like drives it forward in a way that maybe if it was just live action the whole time with no songs, I don't think I'd like this movie as much. I think this is his only musical. I don't know that for sure. I mean, the man's made like 150 films, so perhaps there's another musical sprinkled in there, but I really enjoyed this personally. And I appreciate you guys being down to go in, as you said, Emilio, brick cold to a movie that you were like, I've never even heard of this movie before I brought it to you guys. So I'm really thrilled to be able to talk about it.
Well, the fact that we all came into this, so I guess we'll keep using the term brick cold, was part of what was enticing about it. I really enjoyed it too. I have not seen Ichi the Killer, but prior to The Happiness of the Katakuris, I had seen Audition like a year and a half before we're recording this, courtesy of the oft-mentioned my cousin Sylvie, past guest, friend of the podcast, who was very ardent about getting me to see Audition when it was on Criterion Channel. We made an evening of it. The Happiness of the Katakuris, I'll get into it a little more later, but I could certainly see some of those Takashi Miike directorial touches, and yet it did feel like such a wild experiment too. I enjoy it when a movie is willing to just throw something at you with pretty much no explanation. Like, we don't need a reason for there to be stop motion other than the fact that, that Miike or whoever else in the movie just wanted to put it there, or with these musical numbers, or just like the confluence of themes. It's not really as much about the why as much as the effect of it. I enjoy an absurd mix of concepts, and I had a great time watching this movie.
So, Emilio, you've asked all of us, but what did you think of this movie? Because I talked to you very briefly the other day. Yeah, and you were like, had said that you had tested your video to make sure it worked, and you watched the first like 10 minutes, which I assume is like the claymation at the beginning. And you were like, I kind of love this. But, the rest of the movie is so different from how it starts. So what did you think of this movie?
Okay, I am going to say that I don't usually seek out movies like this. And that's okay. I mean, this is one of the reasons why we do this podcast.
Totally.
I love getting to hear suggestions from you guys. It's one of the reasons, Lexi, I follow you on social media. I love getting recommendations for things that I normally would not seek out. I also found this movie to be surprisingly watchable, and it hooked me in kind of a funny way. I think if you fully give yourself over to this movie, it is kind of weird, but I also feel like it's kind of thoughtful and thought-provoking about certain themes. That was some of the strongest stuff about it, was how it Trojan horsed concepts of peace of mind and familial responsibility and familial dynamics into this like very weird little movie. So I had a great time. It was fun. I'm excited to talk about it. I think this will be a really good conversation.
I'm thrilled to hear that. Yeah, I think you're so right that if you're just looking at the surface of this film and just being like, oh, it's kind of absurd, like the songs are a little goofy and it's campy, but I like how you said like they're Trojan horsing it. There are much deeper themes, and like the concept of family, I think I want to get into, you know, what are you willing to do to like protect the people you love? I think that's a big theme of this. And yeah, so I like that this kind of silly movie, it has things that it really wants to get across, and I respect that. Whereas I watched The Quiet Family, as I said. Lexi, have you seen The Quiet Family?
I have, but I watched it after this movie once I found out it was a remake.
I imagine that's true of a lot of people. I mean, maybe it's funny. Once I looked into The Quiet Family and I saw some of the cast, and I'm like, wow, this movie has kind of an incredible cast. It's got like the dad from Parasite and like the guy from Old Boy, whose names I don't have in front of me, so apologies to those two actors. And they're like kind of incredible. But I have to say, I didn't enjoy that movie as much as I enjoyed this one. But that was maybe just me personally.
I'm interested by that. The core concept of this movie is kind of weird, and that's dark humor that's right up my alley.
I don't want to spoil that movie for you, and I also don't want to color anyone's opinion of that movie before going into it. But I think that in Katakuris, I feel like a fondness for the family that I like never really felt quite to the same extent in The Quiet Family. And I think that's part of what carries Katakuris through for me, is that I actually do care about what happens to these people. And I did not feel that in The Quiet Family. Personally, perhaps others will.
I think that's a really interesting, cool note. Not having seen the movie, I'm interested more to see how I'd feel about it too.
Yeah, and taking a surface level look at it seems like it may just lean a little more into the kind of austere side of this story, where it's got less of the whimsical elements that this
definitely
film does.
I'd say minimal whimsy in that film, whereas this is like maximum whimsy, maybe.
Maybe those just need to be terms that we use as a general metric now. Minimal whimsy.
Yeah, like where
whimsy.
on the whimsy scale does a film fall?
Is it Katakuris or is it
Quiet Family?
Yeah, Quiet Family. There we go.
But so, you know, being that we are in a cycle of episodes where we're discussing offbeat musicals, we've noted many of the big swings that the Happiness of the Katakuris takes in its mix of content and sensibilities. It struck me that maybe the first hour of it, I felt like, you know, it certainly qualifies as a musical, but it felt like it was taking a while to really feel like that was in full swing. But then by the time the film was done, I think that its status as a musical is pretty undeniable. And so, like, how do you all interpret the presence of musical numbers in this story? Like, do you see a correlation in when or why the characters break into song, or do you think that this stylistic choice has a particular impact on the story at large? Yeah, just how do the musical numbers land to you?
So the stylistic choice of making it a musical, I think, makes this film less self-serious and comical. Like, it establishes a more comedic, absurd tone. The Quiet Family is also a dark comedy, but it's more grounded in reality. I feel like the musical element of this film gives it that more over-the-top, extravagant, whimsical vibe. And I was thinking about the musical aspect, like how many times they start singing, when they start singing. And I don't know if this was intentional, but it feels like they break into song more after dark moments when things go wrong, or the more emotional moments. So I thought maybe it was meant as a way to express their emotions, possibly.
I think you're spot on. I listened to the Takashi Miike commentary on this film, which has, I don't have the actor's name in front of me, but the actor that plays like the first hotel guest that dies from suicide. I think this actor's in a lot of Miike films, and he's just like, I'm bringing my buddy. But Miike does kind of talk about that, how the Katakuris as a family, they're using breaking into song and dance as like a way to cope with what's happening around them and get a handle on their emotions and like move forward together. So I think you're spot on that, like, that's the emotional moments are like, you know, it's spurring them into musical territory.
Yeah. The conventional wisdom, I think, when it comes to musicals is that you sing what can't be said, right? Like the emotion of a moment is so great that words alone are not going to do the character's feelings justice. And I noted that too. I mean, I felt like anytime a character feels something well up, there's a song. I didn't respond quite as much to the songs. I don't feel like the songs in this movie are terribly memorable. I'm just going to say that.
That's okay.
And that, to me, I think is kind of important when you think about a musical. But I also think in some ways, these don't have to be memorable. It's just the fact that there's something happening, that the conventions of musicals are suddenly tapped into for a brief moment. I appreciate that as a move. Also, the musician in me is like, I want better songs.
Yeah.
Like, I want them to be better. The musical nature of this movie was like hitting a switch. It's interesting, but I also don't find it to be actually the most compelling stuff about this.
Yeah, I think there's a little bit of a musical disconnect in the songs.
Definitely.
What he said on the commentary is that lyrically, the lyrics were written by the screenwriter, who is not a musician. And then they hire a composer. So the screenwriter is Kikumi Yamagishi. And then they hire a composer. There are two listed on Wikipedia. I'm not sure who did the core of the music or if it's kind of split, but that's Koji Endo and Kuji Makino. Anyway, the screenwriter writes the lyrics, and then they hire musicians, composers to just compose the melody. I don't think they're working together really at any point. And I think that may be part of, particularly because the screenwriter is not a songwriter. I think that may cause some musical disconnect with like not really having like a hit, because I think the composers of the melodies are limited to what lyrically they were given, which is like kind of in a like an untraditional structure for a song.
Yeah, that's an interesting thought too. And it's also that there's like a little bit of an aura of mystery surrounding the movie in general, because, you know, it was pretty difficult to get for a long time. And now that there is this Blu-ray release that Madeline, you own and are holding up on the screen right now and very graciously let me borrow
it has
earlier
this
this
sleeve
week.
Also, which has a really fun art on it, I think.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, sweet. Yeah. Shout out to archive.org. There is a upload of it there, which is in pretty great quality, honestly.
Yeah, solid.
You know, because there's a little bit of mystery around this movie, there's a limitation of resources around it too. So it's difficult to know details like what you were describing, Madeline, of like the split of who wrote the lyrics, who composed, and what exactly was the thinking in doing that. Yeah, it makes me wonder about like whose idea was it after seeing The Quiet Family to say, let's make a musical of this.
Can I really quickly say, I think I have a thought on that?
Yes.
Which is just that in The Quiet Family, the family makeup is a little bit different. It's like parent, 3 children, and then an uncle. And the 3 children are like all like a teenage/adult. One of them is like, she sings. That's like her hobby. She has a couple of songs. She's just kind of sitting around and singing. Like it's diegetic. Like people are actually like, oh yeah, she's over there singing. She has such a nice voice. I think I understand why someone would watch that and see her songs and be like, maybe we run with this. I see the like A to Z.
Gotcha. But yeah, but then thinking about like how the music registers in the movie itself, I do agree that it's a little difficult for me to call a melody to mind when I try to think back on the songs in the movie. But I do think like what sticks with me more about those musical scenes, if not the melodies or the songs themselves, the scenery definitely sticks with me. Going back to the point that you made, Lexi, I think there's definitely a current of music being there to convey a well up of emotion. I noted too that the very first musical number is actually associated with the first tragedy of the story, that it's that first guest in the house, you know, before we even know what's going to happen to him. Yeah, so there's certainly that association with the trials of this story. But then I found it interesting too that a little while after that, that when you get the first song that goes with the daughter of the family, Shizue, that when she's talking about her love interest, this soldier, this Navy soldier named Richard, I keep wanting to call him Rolf for maybe obvious reasons, that happens after some of the initial tragedy and takes a totally different tone.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
And I
right,
think it's like
definitely.
maybe the best musical number, both musically and like production wise, with what they do there. I would say just because you may get to this, it's fantasy. Like
Right.
at the end of it, you see her like just on the ground, like kind of writhing around in fantasy.
Sure.
And I
sure.
think maybe some of the other musical numbers I would argue are also fantasy. But I think that one is the most like obvious example of that. They're making it more fantastical for that reason.
Yeah.
You might have just answered this question, but did everybody here have a favorite musical number? Did anybody take a note on that?
I think there was a charm to many of them, but the one that I thought was a personal favorite was kind of towards the end. It's not the very last one, but when they're dealing with the buried bodies and some of them come to life as zombies.
Yeah.
I think like the mix of the macabre and the more whimsical side of it, it felt I mean, I'm not like trying to impose a familiarity bias here, but I think maybe like the very ready thriller comparison that exists there made it
Sure.
feel maybe I knew a little more how to get into that kind of number. But I think I also was just amused by the like this is a point where the genre confluence of the movie comes into the music as well, whereas a lot of the other songs feel like kind of just like little character portraits in the way they're meant to be. But this is a point where more of the greater sensibility of the movie comes together in a smaller moment.
Cool.
I like that one for sure.
Yeah, that one's my favorite too, but I was thinking, I thought the reason why the songs weren't memorable is because I don't speak Japanese. So, like, they're not going to be catchy because I don't know the words. But it's the visuals that I remember. Like, the ones I remember most are the karaoke style one and the dancing zombies. And I just remember when I was rewatching it, like, tapping my foot along with the dancing zombies one. So I was like, that's probably my favorite.
Yeah, I think that one's great.
That's a great point you make too.
Yeah.
If you don't speak Japanese, maybe that affects your ability to really retain the melody. And also, I mean, unlike House, this is not a movie that has a persistent motif the whole time that is like deliberately trying to exhaust you.
Oh yeah, House definitely not a musical, I would say.
Mine was the karaoke number. I felt like that was the one that the movie just is asking you to buy what it's selling. I also felt like it was the one that seemed to, I don't want to say course correct, but like just kind of shift the tone of the movie in that direction where we're reminded of the fact that this couple has like a very strong bond.
Yeah.
It kind of worked for me. And I really liked too that when it ended, it cut to that shot of them just on the staircase, her head against his shoulder. And it just kind of stays with them for a little bit. To me, that was when it worked the best, where it was a little fantastical, but it's like, you could imagine these are people that sang a bunch of karaoke when they were younger before they had kids. And that type of iconography is just like a fun place for their brains to go. I think that was the number that got me the most invested in where the story was going.
Yeah, I think that one is effective for all the reasons that you're saying, in that it deepens their relationship in a way that, I'm sorry to keep doing this, The Quiet Family, I think, does not do as effective of a job making you care about the relationship between the husband and wife, because I don't think that's what that movie is trying to do. Whereas I think that Katakuris so strongly needs you to be rooting for its characters, even when they're doing bad things. And I think part of that is to believe in their relationships and love for each other. And I think that the karaoke number does a really good job of building that.
Totally.
Sweet.
And also, I listened to this podcast called Bloodhouse.
I listened to like the first half of that and I was very impressed. I liked that one a lot.
Yeah, it's a great episode that they have on this movie. It's House spelled the German way, Haus. But one of the hosts, or maybe the guest on that episode, describes the presence of the musical numbers as mostly a subjective element in the Happiness of the Katakuris, which I think we've given some lip service to already, but it's as opposed to like in a more standard musicals where there's kind of a plot function to certain songs as well. It feels less like there are character revelations in some of these musical numbers as much as just kind of expressions.
I also think that particular number, the karaoke one, it is playing into the fact that Kenji Sawada, who plays the father, has a background as like a teen idol.
Yeah.
His main background prior to entering acting is that he was a musician, mostly in like the 60s. I think they were half joking, but on the commentary, they call him the Japanese Elvis Presley.
Wow.
And I think the karaoke number kind of plays into this image of his pretty effectively.
And that actor, too, was also a big fan of Julie Andrews and nicknamed Julie for that reason. And then this is a movie that has some pretty conspicuous Sound of Music allusions as well.
Yeah. But as I was saying earlier, my favorite is the one with Shizue and Richard, her fantasy number. I think just because it's the largest like ensemble, like there's these huge groups of people with choreography. There's like absurdist points that you see in some of the other numbers where like he's levitating or like she's on like a dolly. Like it's just, I think they're really playing into like the fun part of like producing a musical. I feel like that number is, to me, the most fun. And I also do think it's kind of catchy. So that's my favorite.
I like that. Cool. Well, watching The Happiness of the Katakuris, the digital camera work and the very flat lighting made me think just right from jump that this movie was leaning into the campiness, I think. It felt a little bit like a daytime soap opera. There was like a very kind of simple presentation to this movie at many points, but there were also a lot of moments where I felt in the direction it was suggesting the kind of craft that we more often associate with cinema's more celebrated auteurs. And so I wanted to ask the group, like, what moment or moments from the film stand out to you where you felt Miike's hand was digging a little deeper into his bag, perhaps, to show us something on screen?
My thought here is actually kind of not a direct answer to the question, because I thought about it and I think the movie as a whole does still feel like Miike's style because of how chaotic it is. And just from what I've seen from him, his movies are so different from each other and all over the place. And I think the flat lighting and the digital camera work were used to give it this brighter feeling for when it's parodying movies like The Sound of Music. And there are a lot of aspects of the film that I think people could say, that looks terrible or this is poorly done. But all of it feels so intentional.
Yeah.
So like there wasn't a specific moment that came to mind. I just think as a whole, it still feels like his very bizarre, chaotic style.
Yeah.
I like that. And it certainly, continues to entice me to see other films of his. But with Audition as the only one that I have for context, which is also, it's pretty close in time to this film because it's released only 2 years ahead of it and Ichi the Killer comes in between.
Along with like 10 other films. But
yeah.
Like it's difficult to think of other people who are this prolific in terms of their filming schedules. Yeah. The only other person I can think of is Rainer Werner Fassbinder, the German filmmaker who was mostly active in the 60s, 70s, and early 80s. He was someone I remember hearing years ago that he was making movies pretty much every day of his life for a number of years.
Good Lord. Okay.
But yeah, I'm pretty sure he overdosed when he was like 37 years old.
Wow.
Thankfully, Takashi Miike is still with us.
And still making movies. I think
still
not at quite as much of a clip as he was, but still I'd say like releasing more than the average filmmaker does.
Sure.
Yeah, and he's like up there in age. He's in his mid 60s now.
Yeah. I also just want to say right at the gate that my question was not necessarily an attack on the film. There was no part of me that felt like, oh God, like couldn't they have just gotten together a few more $1 million and shot this on film or whatever? It was more of just like, oh, this movie is making a choice to present it,
Yeah.
you know, in this way. It's a look that is often ascribed to something that is not cinematic, is what I'll say.
But as Lexi was saying, it does feel intentional. And I think you recognize that as well.
Yeah. The element of this film to me that felt characteristic, having seen Audition, of Miike's style was the moments where things are quiet. The moments where like scenes are drawn out a little longer than maybe you expect them to be. There's a faster pace, there's a brighter tone that goes with the musical numbers, but when they've like maybe the song's over for a second and you see a character kind of standing still in a space, those were the moments that made me think a lot of Audition. I think when people talk about that movie, without saying exactly what happens, there is a very memorable image of a burlap sack in that movie, but also there's just a silence and a slowness that goes with that. And to me, the moment in The Happiness of the Katakuris when I noticed it the first time was at the beginning of actually the first musical number, when the first guest shows up at the house and you get a moment alone with him in his bedroom where he's like shaking and there's snot running down his nose. The more aware of it you are, the more places you see it. But that to me felt like the Miike touch.
Yeah. Emilio, to your question of like what in this almost stands out from the campiness of like digging a little deeper, even though as much as I love the campiness, for me it was the scene towards the end where I don't know that they ever name him, but he's named in IMDb. The man who is like running from the police, his name is Kudo, for supposedly killing his girlfriend in like a crime of passion, and he's holding Terue hostage. And Kenichi Endo, who plays Kudo, and he's also in Project Q and like other Miike films. I think that his performance is like genuinely pretty moving, and I think that his acting in that scene is at like such a higher level of craft than like any other moment from any actor in this entire film. Like,
yeah, it feels like he's in a different movie.
Yeah, like when he first bursts out of the house with the knife at Terue's throat, he feels very manic. But when Mauso starts begging him to let her go, like you see a real range of emotion on that actor's face. You see his desperation to escape from the police, but you also see him process like their love for each other and comparing it to his own situation. And like his eyes are like red with tears in them. I think he's at like a completely different level than a lot of the other actors are able to get to with how the film is trying to portray these characters. Like that's not a dig at the other actors. I just think this particular character is like given such a small but rich opportunity, and like that actor really goes for it.
Yeah, he does. Yeah.
That's like kind of a standout scene for me personally.
Sure.
Yeah.
I'll mention two that jumped out to me. The reveal of the sumo wrestler. I love how that was shot. The camera is a little further away from these characters than you would think, zoomed in on them. It's just following Masao, the father, and the way that it moves with him and just doesn't give him a break. That's kind of his unraveling, is he's like, I cannot believe this has happened again. It pulled me into the movie in a way that was very distinct. That to me was the first moment where I was like, whoa, like I am being asked to live in this guy's anxiety right now. I thought that was really smart and really sharp, and felt contrary to how the rest of the film was being shot, and not in a bad way. The other moment, I love a dream in a dream. And this movie has
love a dream within a dream.
The one that maybe stands out to me the most is the one from American Werewolf in London, which I know is also a callback to Buñuel's The Discreet Charm of the Bourgeoisie. The levels of uncomfortableness that a character is dealing with. I think there's just a lot that you can say with that setup. I really like those. Those are fun.
You were talking about the sumo wrestler. Takashi Miike says that they found the sumo wrestler from like a TV special that they did. They were like, we're looking for like a large man who can dance, because he has to come back for like the zombie scene, like who can kind of move and be in this upcoming Takashi Miike film. And they
Yeah.
do like a television program where they're like, we're going to find our dancing sumo wrestler. And like,
Oh, no
that's
way.
how he's cast. I couldn't find any evidence of this anywhere, but that is what they say on the commentary.
Wow. Okay. Well, mission accomplished. He's very memorable in every aspect of his presentation.
Totally. Well, it's like, as we're still talking about like these aesthetic touches, another, I feel like it's worth giving a little shout out to like one of the rare moments in the movie where you can feel there's something bad about to happen and it actually kind of doesn't happen. Maybe like 2/3 of the way through the movie, there's this big family that comes to stay at the inn.
Yeah.
You can feel there's like something off kilter going on, but they end up coming and going and they're all right from this
Yeah.
guest house. And it was interesting to see, I don't know if you call it like a red herring or if it's just kind of like the traumatized tone of the movie, the way the trauma lingers for these characters that's coloring the scene.
Because they're like prepping for this family to off themselves. They're like digging the big group grave. So it is like a sigh of relief, I think, from them and from the audience that were like, this poor family, they get out just fine.
They're just throwing away garbage. That's all.
Yeah.
Yeah. I appreciated that no kids have to end up as dead people in this. Although I
Yes.
gotta say, the detail of that kid just sniffling it as a
Coughing.
parent, I'm like, what's not accurate is that everybody in that inn doesn't have some sort of respiratory
Yeah.
thing happening. So
Miike says that he's meant to have asthma. I don't know that this
Oh.
child is like an effective enough actor to get that across.
I kind of like that he's just that kid that picked up like something from the petri dish of
and like not
his-
covering his mouth, just
Exactly.
like coughing everywhere.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We haven't really talked about, I don't have her name in front of me, but the little girl in the Katakuri family. And as a
Yuri.
parent, Emilio, I was curious, how do you feel about Yuri? Did she tug at your heartstrings?
You know, not as much as I thought it was going to have me do. It was one of those situations where I was like, are we watching Days of Heaven all of a sudden? And she's going to come back and it's going to be more, more of a thing. Aside from that really cute comment about where the rest of the body of the deer was, I didn't really connect too much with her, but I also
They don't
felt
do
like the
too
movie
much with
wasn't
her.
really, I didn't
Yeah.
feel like the movie was asking us to. I felt like it was just kind of like a little bit of an in the narration and then we're off and running. And
Yeah.
we are meant to sympathize and relate to other characters more.
I was just pretty impressed with this. Like, how old do you think this kid is? Like 4?
Yeah, probably.
Yeah, I was very impressed with her singing and her choreography. Like, I think she does a pretty good job of keeping up with the choreography. And I'd say maybe she's actually better at some of these moves than some of the adult actors. So I was like, you go, small child.
The actor's name is Tamaki Miyazaki.
Shout out. Maybe they had a television program to find the 4-year-old that could
Yeah.
also dance.
All right. So, guys, is it time to step into the comparison corner?
Certainly.
Let's do it.
Well, I feel like, I think the way that the characters are set up here is kind of the opposite to the movie that I'm about to mention. But I feel like if we're talking about a roadside house where a bunch of strange things happen and then there are a lot of aesthetic leaps being taken, can't help but think of the Rocky Horror Picture Show a little bit.
Oh, yeah.
Sure.
I think maybe the biggest point of connection is actually those aesthetic leaps, because that movie it kind of presents a few stylistic touches that it sticks to, but then there are some songs that come later on that really throw you for a loop. And I think like the third act of that movie is just there's just a feeling, in mostly a good way, of like, where did this come from?
Yeah.
It's another cult movie that has like a really robust following, and there's been like a very substantial tradition made of how that movie is experienced. I'm not aware of any such thing existing for the Happiness of the Katakuris. I'm not aware of like midnight screenings where you or you dress up or like throw objects at the screen or whatever.
That is
Or, like,
reserved for a very top tier of cult.
Yeah.
musical, right?
I think the Happiness of the Katakuris is certainly worthy of that kind of cult status, and maybe it hasn't. I mean, it's certainly a cult movie. It hasn't quite gotten to that echelon, maybe in terms of how people appreciate it, but I think it's certainly deserving of it.
But maybe now that this movie is becoming more accessible, like you can find it for free on the internet. You can now buy this like recent Blu-ray release. I hope that more and more people are going to find this movie now that it's easier to find.
Cool. Lexi, how about you?
I wrote down a few for this, but one of them I also wrote down for Unlikely Shared Universe. I'm like, should I
maybe
save that
it?
one?
Yeah, you can save that one. I have the same issue for me.
I mean, the obvious comparisons like that I immediately thought of were The Quiet Family, which is cheating because it's a remake of it, and House.
Yeah.
We already mentioned House, but a musical that it reminded me of, and this one, not really no narrative similarities, but just for its bizarre blend of genres, is Phantom of the Paradise. Like,
oh, yeah.
I was waiting for that one to come
Yeah, we're
up.
going to come back to that.
Yeah.
The only other one that I think is worth mentioning was Suicide Club for its kind of absurd, dark humor.
Yeah, I've not seen this. I'm familiar with it, but I've never actually seen this one.
Same.
That's actually a new one to me. I wasn't familiar beforehand. Well, when did that movie come out?
I feel like around the same time, actually. I could check. I don't remember.
Yeah. It's like 20 years ago, maybe?
2001 also, yeah.
Cool. Boy, something in the water that time.
In Japan, specifically.
Yeah, exactly.
Wow.
Yeah, I like the Phantom of the Paradise comp, I think. As you said, narratively, like the stories are very different, but I do think they're going for like a similar kind of absurdist musical where they're making some big swings, which I always appreciate.
Also, there's like an element of the macabre in it too.
Yeah.
For sure.
Something I was thinking of the last episode that came out was us talking about Little Shop of Horrors. And while I was watching this the first time, I was like, we later will do an episode where we discuss two movies that have some similarities. And I'm like, we absolutely could have done these two as a two-shot. I think there's like horror, comedy, musical similarities of like somebody that it's deal with the devil to a certain extent. Like they're being roped into being somewhat involved in killings, that there's some sort of reason why they feel that they need to get involved in these killings of sometimes innocent people in order to like protect what they have. Also, both of these have a total eclipse of the sun.
Yeah. Thank you. I'm glad you mentioned that.
Which I was just like pointing at the screen. Like, I just saw this. And
Love
there's
that.
like claymation versus puppets. There's like the kind of practical effects element of each of these. So, I mean, I know we just talked about this movie and it's a movie that I love dearly, but it's the one that I thought about the most, I think, comparatively.
Totally.
Cool. Shout out to our Little Shop of Horrors episode with Will Reynolds. That was a blast. If you haven't heard it, go back just one in our feed and check it out. I love that we're all mentioning musicals. My offbeat musical bag is not very deep here. So I'm going with a movie that just, as I was watching it, just started to speak to me a little bit. And that was a movie that we also spoke about, but on the other side of the spectrum, a long while back, which is Shallow Grave.
Okay.
The Danny Boyle film.
Yeah.
That movie is like just like a real solid little gets under your skin kind of movie about three flatmates that take on a fourth, and this fourth roommate now overdoses and dies, leaves a suitcase full of cash, and it becomes a slippery slope, kind of like in the Katakuris, of like involving more dead bodies and the act of burying the bodies, and then maybe they have to exhume them, and there's dissension that starts to happen between these characters, and that there's a climax that involves the police. And I think one of the things that interestingly separates them is that Shallow Grave is kind of about the breakup of found family. That is about these like very unlikable people that are probably on their own because they are unlikable and they happen to have found each other, and that is something that's kind of special. But then there's this other element that comes into the picture that sort of reveals this kind of toxic core about their bond. And on the flip side, the Katakuris is actually about digging back and revealing the sweet fundamental things about this family. And so I thought that's the thing that separates them in kind of a neat way. But I do feel like you could put these movies in conversation with one another if you remove the heavy whimsy. What did we say? It was earlier? It was
Whimsy, Katakuris versus Quiet Family.
There
right?
we go.
Yeah,
Yes,
I
yeah.
would say that having seen all three of these, Shallow Grave definitely, I would say, has a lot of similarities with Quiet Family. There's not a suitcase full of cash, but
Yeah.
for all the reasons that you just compared Katakuris and Shallow Grave, I think also compare Shallow Grave with Quiet Family, and that's the one that removes the whimsy or doesn't have the whimsy added.
Cool. Get down. I love it.
Well, since you've mentioned that, I have another comparison. It's the only other one I have for this segment. The Sam Raimi movie, Drag Me to Hell.
Okay, can you expand on this?
I just watched that movie like the night before this recording, just for context. So
Okay.
it's pretty fresh in my mind, but there's like kind of this sense of misfortune and horror that comes into a setting where you probably wouldn't really expect that to happen. It's a starker contrast in Drag Me to Hell, where it's like this really dry modern Los Angeles cityscape where all of this stuff about demonic spirits comes in. And Happiness of the Katakuris, I mean, it's a roadside house. I mean, it's not like there haven't been horror movies set in those, but aesthetically, we've noted the kind of dry imagery of the movie. It's that I think is a little similar. And then also just the sense that a little bit of misfortune leads to this kind of cascade of progressively worse events, and that like it forces the character to make some choices they wouldn't think that they would have to make.
Okay,
Yeah.
sure. When you first brought this up, I was like, I don't see this at all. I see it more now that you have explained it.
Yeah.
I do think Drag Me to Hell has more of a supernatural element to
Yes.
what's happening than Katakuris does. Although I think you could argue that Katakuris has some of this. Like the movie almost abandons like the four women that you meet at the beginning, who like the four
Right.
women dressed in white, who occasionally pop up in musical numbers, but then you like don't ever see again. You could argue that maybe there is a little bit of a supernatural element with these people. They were described on the commentary as itakos, which is like a body, like a vessel that allows spirits to possess them. So if you buy into that part of it, is their presence causing some of this to happen? Then maybe that helps the comparison with Drag Me to Hell even more so, because there's a supernatural element to that.
Yeah. I like your read on that. I also kind of interpreted it more as just like these were people, and maybe there is a supernatural element to their ability to read, but that like nature kind of wins out, that like we're all trying to make our lives happen, but all it takes is the presence of a animal higher on the food chain to just end everything, or a volcanic eruption to just end everything. And that those characters are kind of there to introduce the like environment that these people that we're about to follow, anything could just happen.
Yeah.
Nature related.
Totally.
That is cold and unemotional.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wouldn't even say that I'm arguing that there's a supernatural element. I'm just saying I think that could be a read, but I don't know if I buy into that myself necessarily.
Yeah.
Sure.
And this has been Comparison Corner.
Yes, it has.
So moving on, each member of the Katakuri family that we meet is dealing with their separate personal struggles. So Masao has been laid off. Masayuki, the son, has some sort of like vague criminal past and also seems to have been fired in some sort of connection with that. Shizue has been recently divorced and is now a single mother. And the guest house gives each of them the opportunity to start anew. But it also strengthens them as a family. It gives them all a support system that seems very much needed. So how do you guys think the concept of family plays into this film? And maybe specifically their motivations to cover up the deaths of their guests?
Admittedly, I'm a little bit influenced in what I'm about to say by a specific comment that Takashi Miike made on one of the bonus documentaries on that Blu-ray. He says something about the role of family in the movie, and I think he's very aware that this is a dark story with like a maudlin edge to it. It seemed like his broader philosophy was that because death is ever present and always surrounding us in the real world, that like his personal view is not one where he thinks people should wallow in the torments of death as much as appreciate life more.
Yeah.
And he was talking a lot about how the transitory nature of family units and that, like, you see them all together in this movie, but that having everyone like that together, you don't always get that. I think he interpreted the film as a celebration of this family's togetherness. Like, and all of these characters are like entering, or maybe not all of them, but many are entering from places of personal turmoil too.
Yeah.
And so then, like, these trials, it's not like they would want to experience more trials and tribulations, but because they're doing it together, there's more of, I mean, sometimes the thing that brings people closest together is a common enemy, or
Yeah.
if not an enemy, common adversity. So
Yeah, I think the whole movie is about family, and they're each individually striving to find their own happiness, but what they bond over is their shared tragedies, traumatic scenarios, and sometimes, you just gotta come together as a family, even if what's bringing you together is disposing of dead bodies.
Totally.
True.
I said this a little bit earlier, but yeah, I mean, Miike says, I think on the commentary, that even if the direction that the family is heading is bad, even if they're doing like bad things, they're heading together, and the tragedies are bonding them closer together. When we start the film, the siblings are arguing a lot. She's like, "You're making fun of my divorce." Like, it's a very like kind of stereotypical sibling like rivalry to a certain extent. By the end, in that final scene when they're frolicking through the field together, there's love. There's, I think, really palpable love between them. And even backing up slightly, during the volcano scene, it's claymation and it's silly, but they're like, after they save
The dog, Pochi. Yeah,
after
get that
they
dog.
save Pochi, which is a moment I love, they then like all hold hands like and circle their house, and it's like their love for each other like saves their home, or possibly they all die and end up in heaven or purgatory together. Who knows? But the way the movie presents it is like they're holding hands in a circle around their home, and they're saving it by like the power of love and their bond together. And yes, it's very silly, but it still moves me.
Sure.
Mhm.
I think the other thing too that I always think about is that the aspirations of this family are really modest.
Yeah.
All Masao wanted to do was retire from his department store job. It's not like he was some guy who was trying to climb the corporate ladder. He just wants to have maybe a little pension and ride off into the sunset, with that.
And I think as a father, he's trying to give his adult children who are struggling like somewhere
Absolutely.
where they can reinvent themselves.
Exactly. Right. And his kids too. It's like, some peace of mind in a relationship, which is, it's not like this character is asking for something so crazy. It's just like, I would love to just find a partner that I am happy with, that cares about my kid. And the son, Masayuki, same thing, wanting to rebuild his reputation,
Because even his family kind of constantly is like, did you steal this dead guy's wallet? Like,
Totally.
did you kill this guy for his wallet? It's like he has to prove himself to them. And he does by the end of it. We'll talk about that too, but continue.
Right. I feel like that's something that is very endearing about the movie as well, which is that this movie is just setting up a family who's not asking for the world. They just want their little corner of the pie, their little piece of the pie. And the moment something good seems to happen, it's like they're cursed. They're unable to get it. And so I think that's just like a very great setup to have the audience buy in. I think it's the strength of the movie.
Yeah.
And every family is complicated.
Absolutely.
When you peel back the layers, it's like there is always something with every family. That is the relatability of it too.
Yeah. And Emilio, you were talking about Masayuki, the son. And one of the scenes when I was rewatching a little bit that really stuck out to me more is towards the end when the police are coming. There's this musical number that's basically like, which of us is going to take the fall?
Right.
They all are kind of like volunteering, like to sacrifice themselves for the well-being of the rest of their family.
Totally.
I think that's really beautiful. And then when there's the like kind of fight with the man that's, I think it was Koso, like holding Terue hostage, then the son like tries to sacrifice himself. And before that, the grandpa to the police tries to sacrifice
Puts
himself.
his hands out. Yeah. He's ready to do the perp walk.
Yeah. I think that that is the point where you're like, we've reached the like pinnacle of family bond, and that each of them is willing to sacrifice themselves for the good of everyone else.
Totally. Wonderful. Well, I'd love to share and also hear from you guys. What were some notable moments or favorite small details from the movie?
On the filmic level, there were some really interesting moments of editing, and there was a great match cut towards the beginning. We've said a little bit about how this guest house is located basically at the foot of Mount Fuji.
Yeah.
But that there's a shot of smoke coming out of the top of Mount Fuji right before the bowl of soup sitting on a hot plate in the Katakuris dining room. So there's a great match cut of those two, and that's a moment too where tonally it felt a little reminiscent of the silences of Audition to me as well. And also that we haven't given any lip service yet to the second stop motion sequence in the movie, which occurs, and this is kind of why I wanted to call Shizue's ostensible suitor Richard Rolfe. It's like not just because of like the very obvious Sound of Music illusion of having there be this soldier boyfriend character, but like
soldier,
the fact, yes,
and also Queen Elizabeth's nephew.
Come on, man. that was amazing. That was like a Nigerian prince scam,
level scam.
Just in person, I loved it.
Also, a U.S. soldier in like the British Royal Navy.
Oh yeah, definitely.
More specifically, I am in the British Royal Navy.
Yeah, but the dark turn that happens with that character, and then the fact that this showdown with Shizue's grandfather Jinpei that has to become stop motion. It feels like out of practical necessity, because they can't really film that scene. But the way that it just kind of seamlessly goes together with the rest of the action, like the movie does not have any trepidations about going there. Aesthetically, it's just like, yep, this is how you're learning it. This is a favorable comparison, to be clear. It almost felt like something that like Monty Python would do.
Okay.
Like I'm thinking like movie Monty Python, like Holy Grail or Life of Brian. There are certain scenes in both of those that I feel like, if not literally in stop motion, there's still like that same kind of jarring switch that they just go ahead with fearlessly.
Right.
Yeah, I really like how the claymation is used in this, because yes, I think there is an aspect of it's hard, it's very difficult and very expensive to do these stunts. Also, I don't know that these are actors that are like really capable of these kinds of stunts.
Yeah. Particularly, the grandfather, maybe just for.
But even like on the commentary, they're referring to the actor that plays Richard as like very feeble. So I think he also was probably not capable of doing some of these stunts. But I think that it feels like an intentional stylistic choice. Like, I think that even if they did have the money to do this scene in live action, I don't think it would be as effective. And as I had said up top, I think the claymation and the musical scenes both add like a really interesting pacing to this movie that like keeps me engaged, because it is like mixing mediums and genres in a way that it's fun.
Yeah.
Sure. Absolutely. I'll jump in with a couple of mine. I grew up really enjoying the Danny Boyle, Guy Ritchie thing, or maybe Baz Luhrmann in Romeo and Juliet, where the characters are introduced and it's just like a freeze frame, and maybe you get a title card for the name, or there's like a graphic or a filter that gets superimposed just to grab your eye a little bit. Call me simple, but I love when movies do this. There's something that's just very cinematic about it. And I love that this movie gave all of our main characters that treatment. It was very fun. I also love in that sequence, there's like a very, very brief moment where the movie suddenly just has like action movie vocabulary. There's the shot of Masayuki just being chased and running.
Yeah.
It's so good. And then there's that great shot where you see it like more from like a telephoto lens, and they're kind of all coming straight at the camera. Like, it's so good. I'm like, I want more of that. And my understanding is that there's a lot more of that if I want to get it from Takashi Miike. So there we go. That was cool. And then two last little things I just want to mention is the t-shirt that Masayuki's wearing. that says,
Oh, yes.
there is a risk of losing your way in life, and it's in English.
My favorite small detail was the t-shirts.
Yeah.
Oh,
great
that's
t-shirt.
cool.
I've heard that it's like pretty common fashion in Japan to wear t-shirts with English phrases on them, but a lot of times they are a little nonsensical. Yeah, this particular example is such an effective way to play with that fashion
Totally.
trend.
There's another shirt that he wears at a different point. It's written backwards and it says, "Yes, I am the one," or something like that.
I think
sure.
that's a clear
Some good
example
choices.
of like this one maybe doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, it's totally absurd.
Love it.
I think maybe what we all enjoy about that is that that's like a kind of little detail where it's inherently on the nose, and yet it's the fact that it's not openly referred to makes it kind of not on the nose.
Yeah, as opposed to another wardrobe moment that they do directly reference is when after Richard is dead, spoiler alert, on the ground, and the grandpa is like looking at like the tag on his Navy uniform and saying like the costume shop that it came from.
Right on. Yes.
Quick shout out on that note that during the musical number that precedes that I just love how when Richard starts flying and you can see the wires.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like,
There's
Give
like
them to me.
almost
I love
no
it.
effort to cover them up.
no.
Yeah.
Yeah.
While we're talking about that scene, he gets a nosebleed and he's like, it's not because I'm horny. I don't know if that's funny to people that haven't watched like a lot of anime, but that it's like such a trope in anime.
Oh, is it really?
That, like yeah, that's why I want to talk about it, because I was like, I don't know that Emilio is going to know
Oh, yeah.
this.
I'm
that
not going to.
It's actually very common in anime for like horny characters to get nosebleeds.
Wow. Talk about.
I don't
repression.
know
That's so
if this
interesting.
is connected to real life at all, but I
Not
do
in
think
my
that's a
personal
direct
life.
reference to this being a trope.
Wow,
Interesting.
that's I can't place it, but there's maybe I'm just thinking of like 11 on Stranger Things, but of like, and which is not something that denotes horniness, at least to my knowledge on that show, but just like, a significant impulse is coming across, and a nosebleed is the way that is signified.
Yeah.
Cool. I just have to point this out. We've brought up the Big Lebowski. The imprint trick that happens in this movie of a character that goes and does the pencil shading only to reveal something
That's right.
completely worthless to their cause and like only indicates like sexual perversion from the characters. I just had to laugh. It was funny.
Obscene watermarks. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. And given how close in time this is to Lebowski, you have to wonder if that's an intentional reference.
Little,
Maybe.
Nod to the Coens.
Yeah.
On the commentary, they're constantly, I think, half joking about like comparing some of these actors to American actors. And then some of these comparisons are just insane. I mean, I already said that they talk about the guy as like the Japanese Elvis Presley. They refer to the son as the Japanese Sean Penn. They refer
angry young man. Sure.
They refer to the grandpa as the Japanese Marlon Brando.
Oh, wow. High praise.
They refer to the mom as the Japanese Meryl Streep.
Whoa. Okay. More high praise.
And they refer to the daughter as the Japanese Meg Ryan.
Wow.
So these just kept coming.
Wow. She had the like bob haircut.
Yeah. They were like, oh,
Maybe-
she's like a comedic character actor.
Got it. Yeah.
So I'm like, yeah, sure.
Looking for love
Some of these
in
I
all
think
the wrong
are
places.
stretches.
Yeah.
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 And then like maybe at least one of maybe the first guest at the house is like the Japanese Stephen Root or something.
Yeah.
Perhaps.
Pan shot, right?
Bad shot.
Sorry.
Don't take my stapler.
There we go. A lot of references. Stephen Root goes hard. On to Unlikely Shared Universe.
Same.
All right. Well, so I mean, being that this is a movie with many actors who have prolific film careers, but are not necessarily in films that we all have seen just yet. I won't speak for everyone, but some of us at least will go along a trail recently blazed by our past guest David Schwartz, which involves more like transposing the cast from this movie into other scenarios where we think that they would fit well. And of course, if you want to do our typical way of connecting at least two different works that an actor's in, that of course is a possibility. But I've got one that goes more the other way. Does anybody want to jump in beforehand, though?
Yeah, I mean, I could start. I was very adamant to you guys about how I wanted to go the traditional route. And then I ended up going like the same format, but not with an actor.
Okay.
Because this is a direct comparison that Miike makes on the commentary. And I was like, well, he said it. It is canon. So I'm going to roll with it and just expand it. But
Go
because
for
it's in our typical format, I can start. So we're going for now to a different scenario. And I'm going to build this for you guys. A young boy by the name of Takeshi is the son of a Yakuza henchman. And despite his strongman father, he's bullied at school. And one day is saved from said bullies by a troubled and sexually repressed young man who has gotten tangled up with the Yakuza himself. His savior soon falls victim to psychological manipulation, which eventually leads to poor Takeshi witnessing a traumatic event that births a revengeful bloodlust for those responsible. Many years later, a member of the Yakuza is found strung up in a park, seemingly dead at the hand of a now older Takeshi. A crow glides by the corpse and then Takeshi before taking off into the sky and flying all the way to the countryside. This crow has a long way to travel, so he stops for a little snack. A demonic cherub who has just hatched from an egg puffed up by a snake. The crow continues his journey and relieves himself on a local man's head, motivating that man to chuck a log at the crow, killing it instantly and causing it to drop to the earth. So I went with this because at the beginning of the commentary, Takashi Miike points to the crow and says, that crow, same crow from this other film. Any guesses?
Wow. But there was like a vaguely familiar element about the setup, but I can't quite place it.
Same.
Well, I know that you guys haven't seen it, but Lexi, I know that you have because we've talked about it a few times, but I don't want to put you on the spot. Do you have any guesses?
Well, now I'm like, because when you first described it, I thought it was Ichi the Killer.
It is Ichi the Killer.
Okay.
Yes.
Well done.
Yeah, he was like, this crow is the same crow as Ichi the Killer. So as much as I wanted to do an actor, I was like, well, he said it. So I'm just going to roll with that.
I like that. That's good. I also just want to shout out Jinpei. Guy's got pretty good aim.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's pretty good.
Yeah, just the recurring bit of him throwing logs at crows.
Yeah, but like also nailing them too. Like I'm not into
because that's a
harming
moving
animals,
target.
But still respect his skills. So anyway, all right, that's all.
Yes. Yeah, I'm with you there.
Cool. Yeah, I can go next. As you set up very well, Julian, I am going to invoke the David Schwartz corollary here on this game. I'm not very familiar with the filmographies of the actors. I'm going to go with this. So this is not a movie that I particularly enjoy. I want to put this out there because I actually don't like it very much. But when the Happiness of the Katakuris got to its conclusion, the movie that was just jumping out to me is This Is the End. Because there's 6 main characters in both of them. And I'm going to do a very unscientific parallel here, which is Shizue, that she's the James Franco of this movie. She's the one who cannot help but bring bad energy into the picture. I'm going to say Craig Robinson is Jinpei because he's, I think, the first to make a kind of sacrificial gesture. I'm going to say that Danny McBride is the Masayuki, the one who's a little bit of a live wire. Jonah Hill is the youngest daughter because it kind of stays on the fringes of the movie and is not really brought up too much. And then I'll say that Seth Rogen and Jay Baruchel are the Masao and Terue because it's their relationship and their as friends that I think is kind of the core of the movie in much the same way that Masao and Terue, their union as husband and wife are kind of the family foundation. And that would make Richard Sagawa the Michael Cera of this movie because he's the bullshitter who seems to wear out his welcome everywhere he goes and ultimately suffers a grisly fate that he definitely had coming to him. But I think that these movies are like towards the end, seemingly, at least in my read of them, about like the things that we do on Earth that can help bring us peace when it's our time to move on. And so I think that these characters could be transposed and you would find really interesting parallels where like the Apatow guys are running the White Lovers Inn and the Katakuris are in a home in Hollywood dealing with some post-apocalyptic reckoning.
I'm with you on this for sure. I'm much like you, do not care for this film. But I can see this comparison.
Cool.
Yeah, that's clever. I like that. Well, I mean, along the lines that you've set up, I mean, I've thought of a similar setup that is going to be very unsurprising coming from me, but it feels necessary to go ahead with it anyway. But let's say that maybe the Katakuri family, after everything that occurs around this home they've made for themselves in the Japanese countryside, they just, contrary to the emotions we see at the end of the film, they just get kind of sick of it all. And then they decide that instead of trying to succeed with this path anymore, they just want to kind of reset and move to the United States and settle somewhere in New Jersey. And then they like maybe like the family unit, they're feeling a little steadier on their feet. Shizue and Masayuki are able to get some steady jobs and they don't all have to live in the same place. So they can kind of spread around a little bit, but then in their separate environs, that Masayuki, maybe he like sees another woman in his apartment building that he suddenly feels like this strange attraction to, and he can't quite muster up the urge to speak to her. Or that like maybe Shizue, she's pure of heart and intention, but that, you know, she just happens to go on a date with a guy who's in a much worse place personally.
Yes.
At some point. And then that, like, sadly, for better or worse, that Masao and Teruei come upon some strife of their own that they may or may not get around. And as all of this is going on, that Yuri is kind of going through some personal growing pains and looking for some answers from her parents that she's not quite getting, but eventually finds her own way.
I'm genuinely impressed by the reaches that you're going with on this. It's kind of funny. Yeah.
Yeah. But, you know, maybe through all of these new layers of ups and downs, that there are new ways that these characters can come a little closer to happiness.
Wow.
So yeah, it's just kind of like if you took, you know, the happiness in this title and like squared it,
right,
then yeah, you get like the happiness parentheses 1998 and 2001
right.
of the Katakuris.
Right. Wow. Very impressed.
Had to come back to that
well
one.
Well done.
Nice job.
Thank you.
Cool.
Wow.
So we kind of have these two different options for formats, and I don't know if that makes this more confusing. Do you have any questions, or do you want to go into what you've got?
I feel like I did not understand the assignment because I've got 3 movies written down that has overlapping actors with the happiness of the Katakuris.
See, that's what we normally
do this. Yeah.
So actually you understood the assignment and I think had like a better knowledge of other films
Correct.
These actors have been in than the 3 of us did. So whatever you've got is actually probably more on correct to the assignment.
But I also didn't write anything creative. I feel like you guys had like this creative way of going into it. I'm just like, this movie's got these actors. This is how it connects. Like,
yeah,
no, go for it.
That's fine.
It can be more vague like that. That's fine.
So the first one is one of the movies I was thinking of for Comparison Corner also, which is The Taste of Tea. Because
I want to see this so bad.
It's about a family and it has surreal elements to it, but it's much more laid back compared to the happiness of the Katakuris. And I don't even know if I should bother naming the actors because for all of these, some of them are really small roles, but 2 of the actors are also in this movie, which the actor who plays Officer Miyake, he plays an assistant detective, so I feel like there's something there, maybe?
Definitely.
100%.
That is right there for the taking for this, yeah.
Yeah.
And then my second one is Tokyo Fist, which has 2 of the same actors, very small roles in both movies, but it feels like it connects because both movies left me feeling like, was the director on drugs when he made this? Like very over the top, absurd, ridiculous. And then my third movie is Swing Girls, which has 3 of the same actors. And their roles don't really overlap, but I feel like there's a connection there because there's a musical component because they all play musical instruments in Swing Girls. So it could be connected.
Sure.
Yeah, that's another
Sure.
one. Like when I was kind of looking into, because as I said, I had planned to do it our traditional way, which is the way you did it. And I was seeing a lot of these films pop up that I hadn't seen, but like immediately added to my list. And I think The Taste of Tea and Swing Girls were the two that I'm like, I'm really excited to watch these because they seem very up and out.
Yeah, I'm not familiar with Swing Girls, but Taste of Tea, similarly, I'm gonna have to move that one up the list.
But I do just want to say, like, I didn't necessarily want to do a cop out of like doing an English language film, but a handful of these actors do have like cross cultural appeal. The grandfather is in You Only Live Twice, the Bond film, and then also as you were talking about the like officer, the police officer, who is Yoshiyuki Morishita. He's in the Kill Bill movies.
Oh wow!
And then also Kenji Sawada is in Mishima: Life in Four Chapters, the Paul Schrader movie. So some of these actors do actually make English language films and like pretty prolific ones.
Cool.
Yeah, and it's interesting to see like some of them have made have a long resume, as you alluded to, Madeline, and others are like, this is one of just a few things that they appeared in. Or like the actor who plays Richard, Kiyoshiro Imawano, that this is one of just a few movies he was in, but that he was a musician as well, adding to the musical elements of this film. And he actually died pretty young, sadly. He was like 58
Cancer or something. Yeah.
Yeah, in the late 2000s.
I think he's quite good in this.
Yeah,
I think he's kind of perfectly cast.
I think you can tell that he's a musician in the way that he's singing.
Yeah.
There's an affectation that he puts on that feels very comfortable for him.
Yeah.
Which is very fun. I liked. So.
And that the actor who plays great grandpa Jinpei, Tetsuro Tamba is his name, that he seems like he was kind of almost like a James Hong figure, where like he's just in
everything,
like maybe not everything, but close to everything for a number of years.
Right.
Well, they refer to him as the Japanese Marlon Brando.
There we go.
This is true.
Was Marlon Brando in everything?
Not really. No.
Okay.
Just very memorable in what he was in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There we go. Cool. Are there any last things that we want to say about our experience with this movie?
Well, I think that the like in the episode before this, when we set this film up, I commented at the time, I think we were all pretty much in the same place about this, that I was going in ice cold to this and thought like I was in for
cold. Sorry,
brick cold, whatever metaphor you choose, but that I was going to be in for something like I was truly not going to know how to assess at first. And it's nice to see that this is still like along some lines of understanding that, it's not like out of a familiarity bias. It's just nice to see this being something that I felt more equipped to interpret than maybe I expected. But I think that the fact that I had already seen something by this director beforehand, it proved to influence this viewing more than I thought it would. So maybe what that means is that the next time or next few times we select Mise-Unseens, we're going to have to search a little harder for things we're going in truly ice or brick cold to.
Although, as we talked about, Miike, he has some stylistic, like, I think things you can point to, but his films, and I think in particular from what I understand of Audition, like this and Audition, seem different in so many ways that I think you're primed a little less than you would be with a lot of other directors.
Although your point about the stillness, I think Julian was very astute. Like I agree. Thanks. The way Quiet is filmed, I definitely see the connection. So very cool. I was delighted to see this. It's super wacky. And again, not always my taste of tea, cup of tea, but this was really fun, and I'm glad that we were able to do it. I liked where this movie left me, and I don't know when I would see this again, but if I do, Madeline, you of the weird
a Blu-ray
Blu-rays, I will hit you up for. I enjoyed it, and it was really fun to talk with you guys about it. So thank you. Thanks for the recommendation.
Agreed.
Dougie. Thank you.
Yes. I will tell him. Yeah, I expected this movie to be exactly at my alley, and it was, and I had a good time, and I'm excited to watch some other Miike films. I plan on watching Audition tonight. But also, Taste of Tea and what was the other?
Swing Girls.
Swing Girls. I'm like really excited to track those two down in particular. So yeah, I had a great time. And Lexi, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Where can people find you, by the way? I know I set up a lot earlier. The floor is yours. Like, let people know what you have going on and where they can find you.
I'm on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube under Movie Rex by Lex. My website is movierexbylex.com, and I'm on Letterboxd, but that's under my full name, which is Lexi Amoriello, which isn't pronounced how it's spelled, so not that easy to find. But if you just type in Movie Rex by Lex, I'm sure it'll come up.
Cool. Sorry if I
Awesome.
butchered your
Sweet.
name at the top. Well,
Everybody does. It's fine.
Okay. Fair enough. Cool. Yeah. Thank you so much for joining us. This was a lot of fun, and I think helpful, at least from my perspective, knowing that somebody here had a little bit of prior knowledge with the film.
Yeah. And now we all get to bring some prior knowledge to other people we speak to about it.
Yeah, that's very true.
That is true.
Well, but now we have covered a film that we all have not seen. And if you're familiar with how we usually order our episodes, the next one is going to be a suggestion box episode, which usually at least one of us has seen, but someone among the three of us has not. And I'm very excited for this next episode.
Same.
Because it's not often that we get to do this, but it really, in its spirit, is a joint suggestion from myself and Madeline to Emilio, and that is a movie written and composed by a duo very near and dear to our hearts, which is the duo of Ron and Russell Mael, aka Sparks. And this is they'd probably call it an opera or musical, whatever you choose to call it, that they made 5 years ago, that they made and was released 5 years ago, directed by Leos Carax, Annette.
Yeah. I'm super pumped for this. I saw Annette in theaters at the IOC. We've talked about how Julian and our friendship was partially, Sparks was very influential on us actually becoming
at a Spark
friends.
Show, yes.
Exactly. Sparks sparked our friendship. So this feels like kind of a long time coming for us to talk about a movie like this. And Emilio, I think that as different as that movie is from this movie, I think that if you enjoyed this, I feel like you're more prepared for Annette than if you had hated this, even though I do think they're very different films.
Cool. Well, I've taken my hands off the wheels on this cycle. I'm ready to let other people come in and take me places. And so, yeah, I'm excited to see this. And I know next to nothing about this, not Katakuris level. I'm excited to see how I feel about this when we get on mics and talk.
Absolutely.
Lexi, have you seen Annette?
Yeah, I also saw it at IFC when it was in theaters.
Oh, cool. Maybe we were in the same theater. That would be fun.
I did too, but I'm going to bet that I wasn't in the same theater as either of you because it was like the mid-afternoon on a Monday and the theater was next to empty.
You're like, oh, that one other person in the corner was Lexi, actually.
I mean, I can't prove that it wasn't, but but if that doesn't sound like the description of the showing you went to, then I guess it wasn't.
I think it was a Friday night, maybe. I don't remember.
Probably
I don't remember
even in those like pandemic drifting away times, a little less populated at that time of the week than it usually would be, but still probably more populated than what I went to.
Yeah. Well, in addition to this podcast, you can follow us on YouTube, TikTok, and Instagram at Sleepless Cinematic Pod. You can contact us via email. We would love to hear from you. Write to us at sleeplesscinematicpod@gmail.com. If you're on Letterboxd, you can follow me, Madeline, at Patroness of Cats.
And you can follow me, Julian, at Julian_Barthold. If you're listening to us for the first time, thanks for finding us. Or if this is the 7th or 8th or even 80th time you've listened to us, thank you for sticking with us. We've really grown to love doing this, and it means the world to have our budding listenership grow.
And if you haven't already, we'd ask you, return listener, to pretty please, write a positive review and rate us on your podcast platform of choice. This is one of the best ways for new listeners to find us and help our podcast take its next steps. You can also keep it grassroots. You can tell a friend to tell a friend to tell a friend, to tell a friend, to tell more friends about the Sleepless Cinematic Podcast. That helps too.
Well, I'm going to go gather some logs and look for some crows for targeting practice.
Do it. You got to start somewhere. Junpei is like, he's put in his 10,000 hours, man. Yeah.